Our next inductee is the wonderful Dr. Prasad Kaipa. He is the author of From Smart to Wise. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your hands to Dr. Prasad Kaipa.
When I was in Apple in 1989, I had a chance to meet with a wonderful gentleman called Reuven Feuerstein. He passed away early this year, and he was one of the gentlemen who worked with a large number of kids with autism and Down syndrome and helped them to transform their lives, and not only their lives, but that of their families. And when I was interested in learning about what he does, when I went to New York, he just asked me, oh, you want to learn about how to transform these people, how to ignite their genius. He said, he looked at his wife, Bertha, and said, what do we have today? I said, pretty open. It's all time with Prasad. So he said, okay, let's get out. And we got out. I was in New York. We took a taxi, went to the train station, and took a train to Washington, D.C., and went to Smithsonian Art Museum. And he asked me to stand in front of Van Gogh, the ocean and the boat, and he looks at it and says, what do you see there? I said, a boat, ocean, some people who are there. He said, go nearby a little bit. Just tell me what you see, not necessarily what you want to see, what you are interpreting, what do you really see? I went nearby and I found out most of those faces did not have eyes or features, they were just ovals that are there. But I saw faces when there were no such thing other than just lines in there. Then he asked me to look at it from another angle. He looked at, he asked me to look at it from another angle. The greatness of Van Gogh was that actually when you change your angle, you begin to see things as if you are standing in front of the ocean. He said what he was writing and drawing, all his stuff was for the person to see. He is actually visualizing and creating it for people to imagine what they need to. And he took me to various other artworks, Monet and various other kinds of different types of things. And after about 45 minutes, he was saying, did you ever go through art appreciation? No. Do you know anything about art very much? I said, not till now. Then he says, it's time for you to be tested. So in the meantime, the curator of Smithsonian Art Museum comes running. Afterwards, I found out that he was on the board of Smithsonian, and Bertha was a very accomplished artist herself. And then the curator comes and says, Reuven says, okay, here is the guy, ask him away. And they start asking me about Picasso and Monet and Van Gogh and what do I see as the differences. I was just pulling them. I have no idea, right, but except what he told me. But within about 5 minutes, I realized I knew more about art in the 1 hour that I spent with him than I learned my entire life. And he told me that the curator told me, you learned more about art in past 45 minutes that it normally takes about 1 year for people to go through that. And then Reuven tells me this is called mediated learning. The reason for that is most of us, when we look at each other, when we look at something, we look at something which is out there, but who we are is much bigger, and we have something extraordinary inside waiting to be ignited, waiting to be unleashed. That's what I call igniting the genius within us, because in each one of us there is an entire universe. And that entire universe that connects with the earlier speakers, that when you cremate, when you mix, you go back to like ashes to ashes, dust to dust. In some respect, we come from the spirit and we go back into the spirit, but in the middle of it, we get stuck with a certain form, certain intelligence, certain names, certain clothes, certain qualifications, and we think we are limited by that. What I learned from Reuven Feuerstein is that when you are actually working with the Down syndrome kid, he said, I don't work with the kid, I work with the entire family. When I transform the family around the kid, actually the kid starts becoming more intelligent, because we need to deal with people based on who they can be and the potential they have, not what they look for the first look. And what was amazing out of that was, towards the end of my connection with him, he gives me a small Sanskrit quotation. He says, can you read it? I said, yeah, and I read it. And it just so happened that it was something which I knew. I told him, he said, can you translate it? I did. And then he nodded his head like this and said, you're wasting your life with Apple computer. Of course, my ego was really bruised. You know, like I was a fellow at Apple University. I was making pretty good money. I had a chance to meet with 200 extraordinary people, including several Nobel laureates. And I was being paid to go around and study how people learn, how people think, how people create. And I'm actually meeting some of these wonderful people who are like the stars in their field. And this guy is telling me, you're just wasting your life in Apple computer. I said, can you elaborate a little bit? He says, you know, you say that, you know, you have a PhD and you're working for them, you're doing all this, it's exciting. But what is exciting to me is that you could take this small piece, a quotation, which I asked many Indian people, they wouldn't even be able to read Sanskrit. You know how to read Sanskrit, you knew where this is, you could interpret it that this is from Yoga Sutras. And if you were to really know that this particular sutra is the basis for much of my work with 100,000 people whom I have worked with. You know that, but you don't know the value of it. You come here and you say, oh, I spent time in operating theaters of brain surgeons, I interviewed Nobel laureates, and you are like going as if you have done something great, but you have not touched what is inside of you yourself. He said, if you need to ignite the genius of other people, if you need to design tools that augment human intelligence, first you need to ignite your own intelligence. And the way to ignite that has a lot more to do with technology than connection, mutuality, contribution. What you contribute multiplies. Now let me ask you a question. How many of you think of a time when you received a gift? Okay, great, quite a few of you. Okay, and how many of you are happy about the gift that you received even now? Much less. Okay, I understand that. Now, how many of you had a chance to give a gift to somebody else? Okay, how many of you are happy about the gift that you gave to other people? Isn't that interesting? The gift that we give, it keeps on giving. That gift we receive reduces in value as soon as the novelty goes away. What you appreciate appreciates in value. What you depreciate disappears. So when we want to take care of each other, when we want to discover the energy, when we want to make people enthusiastic, when we want people to tap into their innate latent potential, what we need to do at some level is to appreciate for what you are interested in, what you see in them, the spirit of who they are, you need to tap into, and you need to give that feedback authentically, in a grounded way, and in an appropriate, timely sense. That means catch people doing something right. Try to do it at least 3 times a day, and that will open up more doors and more lives around you. How do you know that you have ignited the genius? I found out it comes when you really think about energy. We are all about energy, right? At some level, either you bring energy when you come into the room, or you bring energy when you leave the room. How many of you, for example, if you are a manager or a teacher or a parent, how many of you make other people excited when you go into a meeting, when you sit in with them, when you ask them to come to the dining table, how excited are they? Or are they more excited when you are on vacation, when you are traveling, when you are not in the meeting? That should tell you something about the energy that you bring in. So what am I saying? I found that igniting the genius is actually a very natural process. Contribution, actually, if you look at word etymologically, it is to pay tribute together. When I appreciate, acknowledge, and contribute to you, I am actually growing. And this started for me when my grandmother used to tell me a new story every single day I met her through my entire life. What she taught me was imagination is something that is so valued. Similarly, I had a teacher called Professor Rangachari who did not start a new lesson in the undergrad to the 40 other students on the day I wasn't there. He said, Prasad is so interested in physics. If he is not there, I think he will miss this. We should not start this. Today, why not we review what we have learned? Because of that, even though I got the lowest marks in physics when compared to my other subjects, I went on to do my master's and PhD in physics because somehow that person believed in me and it allowed me to believe in myself. So, I want you to think about your own spouses, your own kids. Do you believe in them? Do you have confidence in their potential? Are you willing to trust and give a chance for them to be all that they want to be, that they still don't know that part of it? If you can help them to first mediate so that they can see and look beyond what is out there, they can hear and listen to their own inner voices, then finding passion, finding purpose, and finding meaning around us, helping us to be happy and helping us to be supportive of each other and create a world that works for everybody is going to be a reality, and it will be here very soon. I hope we all can work towards it, and thank you very much.